Jeremiah chapter 2. Like I said, I'll try not to keep you too long here. Jeremiah 2:1, he says, "Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth, the love of thine espousals, when thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown." Jeremiah, they call Jeremiah the weeping prophet. And just about everywhere you look through Jeremiah, everywhere he goes, he cried. Like he says here, go and cry. And he cries these things in the ears of the people. And very broken man for the most part, but he's humble. He's going with the right intention and a right heart everywhere that he goes. And right in the beginning of the book of Jeremiah here, God tells him, He says, I'm gonna set you up to bring down nations and cities and people and all this, and you start to see what looks like a contrast in our eyes, because here you got what they've called the weeping prophet that's going to bring down nations. Here comes a big crybaby to bring down a nation. Don't sound right in our eyes, but when God is in something, as long as God's getting the glory for something, then He can do whatever He wants to. But right off the bat here, he gives Jeremiah a pretty hard job and a pretty hard prophecy to give unto the people. He tells them to cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord. And he begins with, I remember thee. I remember you. In other words, God is speaking to this people, and He says, hey, I remember you. And right out, just right in the beginning of that, you begin to make some assumptions here that are no doubt accurate, and that is that God does remember them, but they've got to a point where they don't so much remember Him. If they had been dealing with God on a day-to-day basis, and they had been dependent on Him for every need that they had, and giving Him glory and thanks for all that He's done for them and all this, God wouldn't be telling them, look, I remember you. It would be more that I know you. I have a relationship with you, more that rather than I remember you. And we see, you go through the churches nowadays, and maybe I see this more than other people do. I don't know, just because, if nothing else, being in a pastor position, which I'm not saying I'm anything, just the position of it. People talk to you, and I don't know how many people that I talk to that says to me, well, I used to be in church, I used to go, or pray for my loved one. They used to go, they used to be on fire for God, they used to do all this and that, whatever. They used to really have a life of God in them, but they've drifted out. They've got into a place where they no longer have a love for God. They're no longer, they don't go to church anymore. And a lot of these people that you talk to that's in that situation, they're some of the hardest ones to get back into the church, because they've been wounded somehow or another. Something has happened to pull them out. But let me remind you tonight that we're not here to serve any man. Nobody is here tonight, I hope, so that I'll be pleased with anybody, or so that somebody else sees you or anything like that. We come to serve God, folks. And when people go into the churches and they begin to be there to please somebody else, to gain somebody's approval, whatever it may be, then it's so easy to get to a place where you're hurt because people are just mean, folks. I've been around people and church people all my life, talking about church people. Josh Hamby, he said, the church is the meanest place in the world, and it is, folks. Now, I've been there and I've seen all this stuff that goes on. And he talked about it. He said, you go down to the bar and you pull up a bar stool there, and they're patting you on the back. Oh, welcome back, buddy. How you been? All that kind. They don't care what you've done all week. They don't care what your name is, what you look like. They don't care what you smell like. Nothing, nothing matters to them. They just glad somebody else is in the same fix they're in. So they welcome you in there, treat you nice, all that. that. You go back into the church where the love of God is supposed to be, and the first thing you run into at the front door is judgment and somebody pushing you some way or another way. Somebody is saying, "Oh, look, you need to be just like me. You need to follow me. You need to do all that." Listen, I know how mean the church is, folks. I've been in it all my life since I was a little bitty baby. But that's no reason for us to turn our backs on God. God should never have to come to us and say, "Hey, I remember you. You know, we met one time," whatever it is. And He goes on, He tells them, "Not only do I remember you, but I remember the kindness of your youth and the love of thine espousals." Now, He's not talking about a marriage to a wife. He's talking about a marriage to Him, folks. And He says that I remember the kindness, the lovingness of your youth. And tonight I want to we've all got to take a little trip back here tonight. We all got to go back to a place. I remember, and you guys have heard me tell about it different times, but when I got saved, when I was born again, folks, my heart was so tender. I couldn't say anything. If I stood up in the church house, they said, "Testify, brother." The first thing I do before I come off the seat, there was tears running down my face. You know, I couldn't say a word. I couldn't. If somebody get around me, a total stranger, they mention the name of Jesus, I'm crying, folks. Tears running down my face. You know, now I'd stand up in the church down there. We was going to Birch Lick back then. That was the church I got saved in. I would stand up at the end of the service. Anybody got a testimony? And I'm sitting there, my heart pounding, just wanting to tell somebody what God has done for me, wanting to tell them how wonderful God is. And I stand up and I begin to say, "I thank the Lord for saving me." Before I can even get that out, folks, I'm crying so hard that I can't even talk. I can't even tell those people that. But believe me, those little tears speak volumes, folks. They know. There's an understanding that comes with that. And God looking at all of us tonight, I wonder how many of us He's looking at tonight and says, I remember you, and I remember how broken you was when you were first saved. I remember the love of thine espousal when me and you was first married. You see, we are the bride of Christ. To be a bride, there has to be a wedding, folks. He says, "I remember the love of your espousal." Imagine tonight God Himself looking at us and saying, "I remember when you used to love me." Now that's... We're driven by everything. You know, David talked about this the other night down here. This unfeigned love and all this. We're driven by everything. We've got every motive and every purpose and all that, you know. And again, I didn't know I would talk about this, but I've been in the church and I've seen so many people that's in the church with an ulterior motive, you know. They're not there because they love God. They're there for some other reason. You know, they've got something else going on. They stand up and they give a testimony. I thank the Lord for this. And by the way, have you guys heard about, you know, listen, they're not trying to glorify God. They're there to make something known to the people. You know, they're there for some other reason. They're there to get their own agenda out into the church, and they're there, folks. I've seen it. Like I said, you know, God has just opened my eyes so much spiritually over the past year or two, and I've seen so much of this. The Bible talks about them, mark them that cause division among you. All that I've seen, folks, so many in the church with an ulterior motive. I've seen them in the churches that was there for no other reason than to make themselves look good or to tear somebody else down, whatever it is. I remember, and it meant the world to me. I never thought I'd say this out loud in the church house, but I remember when we first started down here, and this stuck out in my mind. David Ballard stood up and he pointed at me and he said something about that I had a pure heart. Well, it meant the world to me to hear that from him. But if you think about it, ask yourself tonight, you know, everything I do, folks, everything I do in this church and for this church and around this church, all that I do is honestly, for the love of God and for the good of the church. It honestly is. I got no motives. I got nothing, no secrets, nothing to hide, none of that kind of stuff. That's one thing tonight that I can say. Most of the time I say I'm in the boat with you tonight. If you're not in that boat, then I'm not with you tonight, because I am serving God to have a pure heart. I'm asking God, Lord, give me all of you. Lord, let me have all of you that I can have. Give me every gift. Roseanne asked me the other day, she said, Whitey, come up to me the other night. He said, I just feel like telling you to keep on seeking and you'll find. And Roseanne's asked me about a dozen times, what are you seeking? What are you looking for? What do you want? And I said, all I can get. And that's honestly the truth, folks. That's what I want, is all I can get of God. Lord, give me more of you. I want more of God. Every day, everything He'll give me, I want it, folks. But He says, I remember you. I remember the kindness of your youth. I remember the love of thine espousal. When we first wed, Brian Gabbard made an example of me one time. He said, you remember all them years ago when you and Roseanne was dating, when you was just getting to know each other? He said, you'd leave everything to get to her. He said, you'd leave your job early. You'd leave your friends. You'd leave Daddy standing in the field working in hay, whatever it was. You would give up anything to get to her because you had such a love for her. And folks, that's absolutely right. And when God says, I remember the love of your espousal, that's what He's talking about. Do you remember, folks? Ask yourself tonight, examine yourself. Do you remember when that love first come into your heart to the point that you would leave everything to get to the house of God? When you would forsake anything. Folks, it didn't matter if it rained. It didn't matter if the yard needed mowed. It didn't matter if there was a sale on down at the store. None of those things. We would forsake everything to get into the place where we could have fellowship with God. I've told different ones this. When I first got saved, we got into church, we got serious with that. There for a while, back years ago, it's hard to believe, we used to be semi-popular, had some friends that would stop and see us every now and then, and stuff like that. And, there for a little while, we'd say, well, we got company, can't go. And I'm not getting on anybody. I know sometimes you get company in from another state or something like that. That's different. We just get somebody drop in there on us at church time. We say, we're going to have to miss church. I hate to, but I hate to hurt their feelings. And before long, we begin to feel a void from that. And before very long at all, when somebody showed up at church time, we left them with three options. Look, you're welcome to stay at our house till we get back, or you're welcome to go with us, or you're welcome to go somewhere else, just whatever you want to do. But we have to go to this place. We have to receive what God has given out for us. Do you remember that love that you had? He said, I remember when thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in the land that was not sown. Now He's talking about the time when He brought them up out of Egypt down there. And I know what everybody's thinking, who would have minded leaving Egypt down there? They was down there in slavery. They was down there making bricks, stomping out mud, all that kind of stuff. Who would have cared to have left that place? But listen, it's like the message we preached up at Kirby Knob there a while back. So many of those people born into captivity, they had never known freedom. They had no idea what was outside that place, folks. Their whole life was right there in that place. They had some kind of a home. They had some kind of life. They had somebody bringing them food every day. They were eating. They were sleeping. Their needs were met. They could live. All that kind of stuff. And God sends a man down there. One man, Moses, like Clendenin said, riding a donkey, carrying a stick to deliver a nation out of Egypt. Moses comes down through there. He says, look, I'm going to bring you up out of this place. No doubt thousands of them thought, why would we want out of this place? This is all we've ever known. We was born and raised here. Everything we got is here. Our lives are here. Why would we want out of this place? But they had such a love for our God that they had heard about from their fathers and grandfathers and mothers and grandmothers and all this. They had such a love for a God that they had never had an interaction with, that they said, we'll leave everything we got. We'll take all that we've got and we'll leave this place. We'll follow you through that wilderness. Do you remember that? God says, I remember that about you. I remember when you loved me enough that you would forsake all for me, you see. I guess the question is not, do we remember that? Do we remember that? I remember when I got saved, within about a week. Listen, folks, I was raised in church all my life. Try not to sneeze on you here. I'll turn around and get Kenny. How about that? Raised in church all my life. I knew all about religion. I knew some Bible stories, you know. I colored the pictures under the pews like my boys do. All that. I went to Sunday school. I heard all that. I went on the church trips. You know, anything going on, folks, I was there. I knew about all that. And I remember, you know, I had no interest in it. Not really. I mean, I like to get out of the house as far as that went, but I had really no interest in it. Not for what it was supposed to be about. But I've seen a lot of things go on in the church that had nothing to do with God at all. And that kind of stuff I was pretty interested in. You want to go play ball? Yeah, I'm on board with that. You know. But about a week after I got saved, I hunted up the head deacon down there, you know, Danny Burns, and I got him over there in the corner by the ear somewhere, and I'm saying, look, hey, how about we start us a softball team, and I think we should start a visiting program, and I got another idea, something else we could do. Folks, I had no knowledge whatsoever, no wisdom at all, but I had a fire for God in me. I wanted to do everything that I could do.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And I remember, Josh will testify to this, lo and behold, a little time passed by, and we did start that visiting program. We started going out, door to door, witnessing, going to the sick. We had a little box there in the church, somebody write a name on that piece of paper and an address or a phone number or something like that. They fold it up, stick it in that box. One of us come along the next week, we pull that name out, folks, we was knocking on their door. We was there at their house, inviting them into the church, telling them what God could do for them. And I remember when we started that, I said, look, now here's how I think we should do it. You know, me dumb as a post, but I had a pretty good idea. I said, here's how I think we should do it. I said, I think we should divide up into teams of 2 or 3. One team go this week, one team go next week, one team the next week, so that nobody gets burnt out. They said, oh no, we want to all go at the same time. We want to all go every week. That lasted about 3 weeks, and the next thing you know, me and Steve Moore went every week for a year probably, by ourselves, nobody else to help us, knocking on those doors. Steve finally left me and Josh took his place. 2 or 3 years, we knocked on them doors without one soul to help us. God says, you remember when you loved me enough to do that? The rest of the church had already lost that, you see. But I had a fresh, brand new fire of God in me. And Josh had it in him. And we had a love for God and a zeal for God. And like I said, I didn't know nothing. I just know that I love God, and I know that He had brought me out of a bad place, folks. I know that He brought me out of a bad place. And all I know to do, for I just dumb as a rock, all I know to do, I thought, man, God has done so much for me, and He's brought me out of such a bad place that I know that everybody else is going to want this. I just knew. I remember the day I got saved there. We drove, I tell you what, showed up at that baptism down there. I didn't have one stitch of dry clothes to change into. I didn't have a towel. I didn't have nothing, folks. But God dealing with me, and my heart about to beat out of my chest. And I knew. I felt it in my heart, folks. God had dealt with me many times. But I felt something that day, and there was something speaking to me last time. Hey, it's going to be the last time I deal with you. You better take me now or forget about it. You know, there is a last chance, folks. I remember that my heart about to pound out of my chest. Like I said, sitting there, nothing to change into, no towel, nothing. I stepped into that water. Folks, I felt God come into this life. I felt a life take place in me that I've never found nothing to compare with it since. It's drove me every single day for all these years, folks. Hey, I've never had a time when I didn't want God. There that life come. I got in that truck afterwards, all over, you know. Got in that truck, had a nice truck. Leather seats even in it. The only one I ever had was leather seats. I got in there sopping wet, water dripping right out of my clothes and my shoes and my pant legs, the floorboard full of water. I drove just as fast as I could to my parents' house. Folks, broke into a building, hijacked a four-wheeler of theirs trying to find them. I know they're around there somewhere. Couldn't find them, finally found them. I could not wait to tell them that God had saved me. And everybody I seen after that. Hey, guess what happened to me? Hey, boy, I've been where you've been. God brought me out and shocked to death that they didn't want it. Still can't understand it. But the Bible says something to the effect of, remember that you were once blind also. That ain't a direct quote, I can't quote it. But remember that you were once blind also. Listen. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I had a bunch more scripture here, but I ain't going to go through all of it. Might save me something for Sunday morning here, you know. Maybe tonight, I don't know why, but maybe tonight you're sitting back there and you're saying, well, I know I got saved. I know I'm born again. I remember telling somebody just a few days after I got saved, I said, if I never feel God again, if He never does anything else for me, I felt enough of God today that I'll never doubt He's real. Never, for the rest of my life, I'll never doubt that He's real. I felt enough of God that day to know that He's real for the rest of my life. And I thank God that He didn't leave me there and say, okay, you've had enough. You just ain't going to feel me for the rest of your life. I'm so glad He didn't leave me there. But I felt God real enough that day. I'll never have to wonder again in my life. But I'll confess to you tonight, there've been times since then when I didn't have the love for God like I should have. And mostly because I didn't have the understanding of what God had done for me. I just didn't understand how much He had done for me. But I'm telling you, like I said, He brought me out of a bad place, folks. And I'd say, truth be told, most of us here tonight, you know, I never was a drunk. I never drunk a drop in my life. Never tasted of it. Never done drugs. Never none of those things. Never stole. Never even had a speeding ticket. Got a warning a few times now, but I never got a ticket. Never spent a night in jail. None of those things. But the longer I go, the more I realize He brought me out of a bad place. I was lost. I was on my way to hell, folks. That's a bad place. No matter how good you are, if you're on your way to hell, that's a bad place to be in. So maybe you're sitting here tonight and you say, well, I know I'm saved. I remember, you know, I had that feeling you felt. That day I felt enough of God to know that He's real the rest of my life too. But I don't have the love for God that I should have. Well, I'll tell you something that's hard to do. And I'm going to hush here in a minute. I know everybody's wanting me to. I might sing another song here in a minute when you all get ready. But once you've went for a long time without telling somebody that you love them, it's hard to tell them that you love them. It's hard to say that again for the first time after a long time. So if you've lost that love that you had for God at one time, start by telling Him. Start by praying and saying, Lord, I do love You. I do love You. And in that prayer, God says you have not because you ask not. But in that prayer, while you're there, in that time with God, and you're telling God, Lord, I love You. But I want You to give me a greater love than I have. Lord, I want You to increase that. Lord, help me to love You. You say, well, I can't tell the Lord that I don't love Him like I should, because listen, He already knows. I mean, it's not like you're going to tell Him. He's not going to be surprised. You know? It's not. You're not going to say, Lord, I know I don't love You like I should, and He's not going to, you're kidding me. I didn't know. That's not, no. God's going to say, you know what, I already know that. I knew that. I knew you didn't love me like you should. And your life's a reflection of that. It is. Even if you're religious, our lives are a reflection of what we truly believe, folks. You say, I believe the Lord come and died for me. I believe what Josh preached, that this is how we know Him, that we keep our commandments. But I don't keep His commandments. Well, do you really believe that? I mean, if your life don't reflect it, can you really say you believe it tonight? Listen, God says, I remember when you loved me. Now, He told them that for one reason. One reason He told them that. That's so that they would remember when they loved Him too. And that they would love Him again. So tonight, as we stand, I know we done been through one altar call. That's all right. God won't get mad at you for praying twice. Just come right on and pray. Ask the Lord. I know we could all love Him more than we do. So just ask the Lord to increase that love tonight. And tell Him you love Him. Just tell Him, I love You, Lord. Lord, I love You. You know, it's like all them times I've told you, fasting and that old belly starts to cramp and growl. When it growls, I say, Lord, I love You. I love You, Lord. Tell Him you love Him tonight. And ask Him to help you love Him more. As they sing. Come and pray. You might not get this chance again.
And I would be telling the truth.
Come and pray tonight.
I can say that I am worthless.
Surely we could all love God more than we do. Surely He could increase our love. Come and pray tonight. I know nobody wants to say, Lord, I don't love You enough. But I also know that God could increase our love. That could be something that drives us, folks. Let that love of God drive you. Let that be the thing that causes you to serve Him tonight. A love for Him. Well, I don't love Him like I should. Listen, understand tonight what He's done for you. I heard Danny Smith preach a message, wonderful message one time. He talked about Christ going to the cross. He said he went to a cross, folks. He was nailed there and He hung there and He died. He paid a sin debt for us. But He did not stop there, folks. From that cross, He descended into the lower parts of the earth. He took the keys of death and hell. But He didn't stop there, folks. He could have stayed right there. A sin debt already paid, folks. He didn't do that. No, He come out of the tomb that day. He was seen of above 500 and His disciples. He spent 40 days being seen, being teaching with them. But He didn't stop there, Lord. No, He didn't stay there. One day He talked to His disciples and talked to those that had seen Him. He said, I've got to ascend. I've got to go back to the Father. I'll send you a comforter. So He left there. He ascended up on a cloud. And He went back up into heaven. But He didn't stop there either, folks. From there, He made His way to the right hand of that Father. And tonight, this night, He makes intercession for you, folks. He's standing there when you fail. He's looking at that Father of His. He's looking at God. He's saying, Lord, Father, that one is mine. I've paid the price for them. And they've accepted that price. And Lord, I know they don't love me like they should. But Lord, help him. Help him to love me more. Lord, help him. Just help him. Lord, He don't know what He does. They know not what they do. Imagine a man loved you enough, loved us enough, folks, to look down from a cross at the very men that had drove spikes through His hands and His feet, who had hung Him there, who had numbered Him with transgressors. Imagine a man who had enough love in him to look down from there and say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Paid a great price, folks. A great price. I'm a royal descendant of a king from Jerusalem. Still got time to come and pray. Still people on this altar tonight. Why would you leave? You know, Don shoots there. He talks about David, King David, but before he was king, he says Saul gave David an invitation into the palace. After David has killed Goliath, Saul comes. He says, why don't you come stay with me in the palace? And Don shoots. This is him talking, not me, folks. He says, who'd say no? Who'd say no? And who would say no, folks? If I could offer you tonight a palace, if I could say, listen, all I got to do is wave my hand, you have a better life. If I could offer you a palace tonight, who'd say no? But God's offering you so much more than that. In that same message, He talks about David. He says, God says, my hand's on you, boy. And He said, this ain't about a palace of the earth. This is about a kingdom of God. Who'd say no? Why would you say no tonight? If God's dealing with you, don't tell Him no tonight. Don't make excuse tonight. Don't say, well, it's too close to the end of the altar call. They've already been singing for 3 or 4 minutes. Don't say that tonight. Don't make excuse. If God's dealing with you, come now. James already announced it. If you can get in the building, the altar's open. It's open, folks. You're in the building, it's open. Come and pray tonight. God says, I remember when you loved me. That I am royal, to say that my Father's king. Well, I'd have to take you to the altar. Think back tonight. Think back. You know, we all get so high and mighty and we think, well, I'm a pretty good person, you know. And I say this pretty often, but think back to that worst minute of your life. The worst person you've ever been. The sorriest thing you've ever done. That person that you was that instant, folks, that's who Christ hung on a cross for. The worst person you've ever been in your life, that's who Christ hung there and died for. That blood that run down that cross, folks, and soaked the ground at the base of that cross, and the water and the blood that come forth when they shoved that spear into His side, all that, folks, was for the worst person you've ever been. Sorriest thing you ever done. You think about it tonight. Think about what He's done for you. Everybody's up. Everybody's off the altar. I know. But I want them to sing one more verse. Keep going through one more verse. I feel it tonight. I feel it like it's important tonight that we give every opportunity. God's giving you this opportunity, folks. Here it is. It's laid out before you. Nothing to hinder you. Just like that old Ethiopian eunuch over there. He said, here's water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? Nothing tonight. There's nothing between you and this altar tonight. Nothing to stop you. Nothing to hinder you. Only you tonight. Only you. Only that pride. And God says He hates a proud look. He hates that proud look. Only you tonight. Nothing in this world to stop you. Nothing to hinder you. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Nobody will be mad and think, well, I was really wanting to go home. I wish they hadn't went. None of those things, folks. God's got it before you here. It's laid out before you. Jesus said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man shall open, I'll come in. I'll sup with him, he with me. He's not going to kick the door down. It's going to be you, folks. You're going to have to open. If any man will open. I'm going to hush. I'll say this.